So this summer, I am off out to the Alps to take part in what is pretty much my dream cycling event. As a kid, I grew up spending a lot of time around the Alpe d'Huez and Bug d'Oisans area, and I always wanted to go and take part in the Marmotte. But being a school teacher at the minute, it's always clashed with a time of year when I can't really travel. But I saw this year the Etape du Tour is pretty much doing what, in my opinion, is a better version of the Marmotte route, and actually one that cuts out a fair bit of the boring valley in favour of even more climbing. So absolutely perfect for a rider like myself. But since this was my dream cycling event, I thought what better than pair it with my absolute dream bike to go with it. And whilst it would have been quite fitting to finish that event up in Alpe d'Huez on my Time Alpe, that's not really a race bike, and it's definitely not a performance-oriented bike. And this is where the guys over at Panda Podium come into the picture. After buying a set of Fast Sports wheels off them back in about October, November time last year, and absolutely loving the experience, I really was keen to work with them. And they've pretty much given me the choice of anything on their store to build up the ultimate dream bike. So I went with the QUICKPRO AR1. And why the AR1, not the ER1, you may ask? Well, I'm a lightweight climber, and I think personally for me, a sort of do-it-all climbing bike is probably better suited than a really chunky, aggressive aero bike that's designed really for holding the line on the flat. Now, I know a lot of the top pros generally are racing aero bikes up climbs these days, but the AR1 is definitely no slouch when it comes to aerodynamic performance, and it is super light to go with it. Before I get started, yes, clearly I have partnered with Panda Podium for this project, and they have supported me with the frame that I'm using in this build. If you want to get yourself one of these QUICKPRO frames, go over to their website and check it out, and you will not be disappointed with the service you receive. However, the best part is they've basically said, look Tom, free reign to say whatever you want in the video. Just go out, build it up, enjoy it, race it, and share your honest thoughts with people. So without further ado, let's get into the build. And make sure you do stick around to the very end, where I'm going to be getting the complete build on the scales. I'm sure the UCI are not going to be happy with this one. First things first, let's get a frame out of the box. So the frames come packaged in some nice foam packaging that seems pretty well protected, all packaged up down there. And here we have the QUICKPRO itself. Also in the box, I've obviously got a fork. This is all very well packaged. Seat post and the integrated bars by QUICKPRO's house brand Canwin. These are 38 centimeters wide and 110 mil long. The reason I've gone slightly shorter on the stem than usual is the reach of this QUICKPRO is rather long. So this should keep it consistent with my other bikes. And a huge bag of hardware, including through axles, bearings, and all the other goodies. Headset and out front mount. But I have to say, this packaging is super robust. I guess it has to be if you're shipping over from China, but it's a lot higher end than some of the cheap Chinese brands like Light Carbon would use. But I guess you're paying over twice the price for this frame. And now for the main event, the frame itself. The QUICKPRO AR1. And wow, this carbon finish in the light looks phenomenal. Very smart looking seat post, really interesting looking clamp design there, with a good bit of grip tape built in so you don't get any post slip. It's quite hard to see, but it's got a clear coat and a bit of thin paint on the raw carbon, which should look awesome when the sun's shining. And yeah, this frame honestly is looking really, really smart. It is a size XL, but really actually that XL is more like a large in a lot of other brands. The camera probably doesn't do it justice, but it's a thin clear coat on the raw carbon so you can see all the layup underneath. I am such a sucker for that finish. You can maybe just about make it out in the light, but what a awesome frame this is going to be. First impressions as well, looking pretty clean on the inside. UDH hanger and a BSA bottom bracket. Of course, it is fully internally routed and has a really nice narrow profile at the front with a proper sort of triangular point at the front of the head tube. And in theory, this is a full monocoque frame, so it's all been made in one go. So weighing a bunch of the extra stuff then, first things first, the seat post, just shy of 170 grams. The bare fork, 398.6. Through axles, I'm curious to see how much these weigh. I might be tempted to go for some over fast axles if these are heavy. 72 grams, so yes, carbon ones would be lighter, but for alloy axles, that's pretty respectable. And you get bags and bags more, like headset spacers and all sorts. You can get a little chain guard and things like the headset bolt. I'm pretty certain this must be titanium at only 3.5 grams. Yeah, I reckon that can't be steel. And yes, I know you'd never all forgive me if I didn't weigh the bare frame itself. So this has got no hardware left on it other than the plastic guides for the cables that I'm not pulling out the frame because I need them for when I go to hose it up. Remember, this is a size XL, so it will be rather heavy. 8.1 kilos, so not the lightest frame in the world, but as I said, this is a size XL and it has got a clear coat on it. And there probably is a few grams worth of all these little hoses in the frame. I nearly forgot to weigh the bars, so let's get these on the scales. 308.7 grams. So that, considering they've still got this little bit of plastic through, which probably weighs 5 or 10 grams, is pretty light. They are pretty much bang on 300 grams, which for a fairly long set of bars is pretty decent. And they've got nice features like the markings to help adjust your levers, along with the same grippy stuff that you get on the seat post or help keep your shifters in place. The fastening mechanism seems really high quality on these, so I can't wait to see what these feel like to ride. It uses the standard sort of split spacers, so you can add and remove them as and when you need to without having to rehose the bike. And it's a pretty standard compression ring and a top cap with a little hole in it, allowing the cables to feed up into the bars. And it even comes with a nice flush fitted top cap. So I very quickly test fitted the seat post and the headset. One thing I really like is just how low profile the top cap is. I mean, with this bike being quite low stack in the first place, I don't think I'll need it, but you can basically run it pretty much entirely slammed. I mean, I've put a few spacers in for now, but yeah, that is how low your bars would be if you wanted it there. I'm definitely gonna have to chop that fork a bit, but I don't mind since it's gonna make it even lighter. I was shocked when I built my Time just how much weight chopping the fork saved. So now we've seen the frame, my rationale for how I'm gonna build it up is as follows. As you may have seen, I've got a really tricked out Dura-Ace Di2 group set on my Time Alpe Duez, which, don't tell the Time fans, I've had to pinch for this build. So yeah, I'm kitting this out with full Dura-Ace Di2, except for one component, which is the brake calipers. I didn't fancy unplumbing all the brake calipers from my Time, so I had some ZRace calipers lying around that I fitted to some secondhand eBay Dura-Ace shifters. When it comes to wheels, as I mentioned before, my Farsports Evo S5s that I bought from Panda Podium about 6 months ago now and have been loving using, combined with some really cheap Goodyear Eagle SuperSport F1R tyres that in the UK at the minute you get for 30 quid a pop. In 28mm, these blow up to just over 30mm, which I think for these rims is pretty much the perfect size. Up front, we're using QUICKPRO's own Canwin integrated one-piece bar and stem, which is feathery light. And then I'm running a RYET saddle that I unboxed on my AliExpress live stream a few weeks ago, and I was really curious to see how it felt. I've also got some ZRace cranks that are 330 grams. I got these from AliExpress and they cost, when on sale, only about 100 quid, which for cranks that light is pretty incredible. They do use a dub style 29mm aluminium axle, which I know isn't the best idea when combined with the frame's BSA bottom bracket, but I've never had a problem with bearings wearing out prematurely. And for chain rings, I've got some old Dura-Ace ones in 5034, which will be perfect when combined to my 1130 cassette, considering the fact that during the Etape, there is 5,500 meters of climbing. So that's the build done, and now there is only one thing left to do. It's time to get the bike out on the road and see just how well it rides. Right, and now we're onto the video where I'm going to give you all my thoughts on how this bike has been performing so far. I've had the build set up for around 2 to 3 weeks now, and I've given it a real mix of testing across several different wheel sets in both hill climb races, long training rides outside, and I even had it up in the lakes with me when I was producing a review of my iCan wheels. And whilst this video is strictly not meant to be a review of the frame, I cannot avoid talking about just how well it is riding. From using all these different wheels, I've pretty much isolated the feeling that's coming from the frame and bars versus the wheels, and the stiffness is like nothing I've ever ridden before. The responsiveness when you put the power down, there's like no flex whatsoever when you need to get going in a straight line. You know, I've ridden quite a lot of frames, a mixture of cheap Chinese stuff and ultra premium European stuff like my Time, and no other bike I've ridden has anywhere near come close to the ride feel of this. If it is like a race style bike you're after, there's no competition between this and my Time. The QUICKPRO is by far the better race bike. And the vast majority of the rest of the build has come together really well, and I'm really happy with it. But before I fly out to France to take part in the Etape, there are a few things I am going to unfortunately have to change and make a few tweaks to. The main one being the brake calipers. Now, these ZRace brakes I put on the build because they were working really well when I've used them with L2 in the past, and they performed brilliantly on my winter bike with the L2 shifters. But with these Dura-Ace shifters, they just don't seem to pair that well. And now maybe it was user error in how I've set them up, but I've tried bleeding them on several occasions, taking them apart, playing around with all the different bleed ports, making sure all the compression nuts are tightened down correctly and everything, but they're still just really mushy when you brake, and it's just not a pleasant feeling, and the braking performance is just a bit rubbish. Alongside that, there just isn't very much pad clearance, and I'm constantly getting rubbing. No matter how many times I realign them, the pistons push out a bit and the clearance is gone. So unlucky to my Time, I am going to be robbing my tricked out titanium modded Dura-Ace calipers off that bike and throwing them on the QUICKPRO. The only other thing I'm not 100% happy with is around the sort of saddle and seat post area. I'm really not getting on well with that RYET saddle. It's just too wide at the nose for me, so I am going to be swapping it back for my trusty SLR Boost, which is only about 20-30 grams heavier, so not too much of a penalty there. And then also another thing which might have contributed to my saddle discomfort is the frame came stock with a offset seat post. Now, if you've seen any of my other builds, you'll see just how aggressively I slam my saddle forward on the rails. And yeah, going from slammed forward saddle to an offset seat post, yeah, just doesn't suit me. So I have ordered myself a zero offset post, which I'm hoping will be here in time before the Etape. Again, while this isn't meant to be a review, this is a near $2,000 frame set. Add another $200 for the bar and you're looking at $2,200. And whilst I think it's well worth it for the money, I do have a couple of tiny little nitpicks that I want to make about the frame. None of these are deal breakers, but they were kind of even better ifs that if QUICKPRO could nail, I think they've absolutely perfected this one. And we'll start first things first with the seat post. Whilst the seat post itself is excellent quality, the fact that they don't include a zero offset by standard or allow you to choose a zero offset at the point of purchase is a bit of a drawback in my books, especially since, as I mentioned before, I'm a rider who loves to slam my saddle forward, even on a zero offset post. And I know it's not just me, loads of other riders these days ride in what the Nero show called the pos, that modern progressive position where you are far further forward over the BB and find it helps them get the power out. It would just be nice when you're spending this much for a bike to be able to just say, can I have the zero offset without an extra charge? Despite saying that, actually, the price they want to buy a second seat post with a zero offset is pretty reasonable. They only want $99, which for a custom proprietary carbon seat post, you can't really complain at, especially when that price includes shipping worldwide. Another little thing, again, while it's amazing that they are using a UDH dropout, it would be nice if they could include a direct mount hanger in the box as standard, or allow you to choose it when ordering. Again, this is the sort of thing a lot of manufacturers also don't do, but I think if QUICKPRO were to allow you to do that, it would really set them well a tier above everybody else in the industry. Fortunately though, since it's UDH, you can grab yourself a new hanger from pretty much anywhere. I actually grabbed one that came with one of my Yoleo frames that I won't be needing since I'm running Axis on it. And then my final little nitpick, and this is the only one that's a kind of quality of components thing, And it's not to do with the frame, it's the Garmin mount for the integrated bars. It's just a very simple, flat carbon affair with the plastics for the Garmin mount itself don't feel the most secure and high quality. Now, whilst it's not awful, it does just feel like a bit of a sort of generic off-brand AliExpress part. And I don't think I would have noticed it as much if everything else didn't seem super high quality. But when you compare it to like the out front mounts that come with my Farsports F1X bars or my EXS Air Rover bars, it's just not quite on that level. Now again, this is not a deal breaker. They don't use any sort of proprietary mounting system. It's a simple 2 bolts under the stem design. So you can pretty much swap it out for whatever out front mount you want. And that's perfect for me and my YouTube antics because I often shoot on my Insta360 X5, which I haven't been able to use with a lot of other bikes since I don't have a compatible mount for their bars. The Insta360 mount is a standard 2 bolt one, so that means it's gonna work perfectly on the QUICKPRO bars. So it means I'll have loads of 360 footage coming up in future race videos. And now we are on to the bit you've all been waiting for. It is time to throw the bike on the scales. Let's see just how light this machine is clocking in at. And so complete build with pedals, bottle cages, power meter and Garmin mount is clocking in at just 6.48 kilos. In kind of bike shop spec, this has got to be down to about 6.1, 6.2 or so. And for a complete bike with pedals that's very much set up to be a sort of daily driver bike that's not particularly weight weaned out or optimized for lightweight, it's all like very usable on the daily. That is incredibly light, especially since we're talking with pedals, cages, Garmin mount. So completely ready to ride. The UCI definitely wouldn't like you racing on this one. But fortunately, I'm not good enough to race UCI races on the road, so it's none of my business there. I can make this bike as light as I want. And you all know, I love a good bit of UK hill climbing action, and the major season for that is September and October. One of my big plans with this build is, whilst it is the build for the Etape, I want it to be really easy to flip it over into hill climb mode, knocking off a ton of weight without having to completely strip it back and rebuild it. I've got some little tricks up my sleeve, including some very, very special wheels also sent to me by the guys over at Panda Podium in order to get this bike feathery light and obliterate the 6 kilo mark, ready to smash it up some climbs and set some blistering times. But we don't have time for that today, so you're gonna have to get yourself subscribed down below if you want to catch that part of the video. And if you want to join this list of absolute legends who get early access to loads of my videos and massively support the channel, either click the join button below or scan the on-screen QR code now. And of course, I'll see you all in the next one.